Welcome back to Survive to Thrive. I'm Kate McKay, and thank you again for joining me. Today, I'm really excited to introduce someone that I know and have been working with recently. His name is Mike Acker, and I will be reading his bio as I always do, and then we'll share some personal information with you once we come on. So Mike is a speaker, a leadership coach, a best-selling author of the book Speak with No Fear, which is fantastic, by the way. With over 19 years of experience in speaking, leadership development, and organizational management, his goal is to help people advance in their communication leadership and in life. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me, Kate. Appreciate it. Good to be here with you.
Buddy? So where are you, Mike? Where are you in this current time of craziness that's going on in our world right now?
Yeah, we are in South Alabama in the Orange Beach area. And so you can't go to the beach, can't go to the pools, but it's nice weather outside. So we got a view of that. We are quarantined. We're stuck inside our condo down here, but it's not a bad spot to be stuck in. So no complaints there.
It's weird because I'm in New England, I'm in Massachusetts, and we have like a nor'easter going on outside. So it's such a dichotomy of like, we're both inside, and yet you have this beauty and this exquisiteness of beach, and I got crazy ass nor'easter. So either way, we're still in our homes. Yeah. So Mike, I know we have a ton of things to cover because I know you have a new book coming out, and I definitely want to talk about the 7 shifts that you're highlighting in that book, which I know is going to provide humongous value to the listeners and the viewers. So I had a couple questions because I do work a fair amount with men as clients, and how do you think this time, you personally, how you feel this is affecting men, you personally, or just men in general, this pandemic and what it's done for us as a society?
Yeah, well, so much of a man's identity is caught up in producing and in going out and doing something. And even with our shift in women working in society just as much as men still have that stereotypical, that classical idea of I got to get out there and earn money for the family, and I got to go bring the bread back in. That whole idea, right? And so a lot of men find their identity in what they do, and they're not doing what they normally do. They're not doing normal routines. We're not going to the gyms that we go to. I'm not going to the gym, right? It's closed down. We're not out and about making sales calls or out and about building the house or whatever it might be. We're not out there leading or doing. And so as a result, there's I believe a little bit of an identity crisis going on right now. Like, if I don't do this, then who am I? If I'm not out there leading, performing, selling, speaking, what am I doing right now? I think there's a little bit of identity crisis.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's probably for men and women, but more as a man, for men, I know that's a lot of what men are experiencing.
It's funny because my son is 23, my middle boy, and he is taking care of my daughter because she was like, I'm out of college. I'm not hanging around with you, Mom, because my son John is in the pot business. So he does very well. He has a legal grow up in Maine and does very, very well. And so I gave him a big bag of food out the door, which is the most bizarre thing because I can't hug and kiss him and scratch him like he likes, So just that in itself, like how men, it's like we don't even have that connection, or people, right? But he said to me, text me this morning, he said, baby, how are you? How was the food? And he goes, oh my God, we inhaled it. And Mom, I really appreciate you helping because it's a lot of pressure to be the provider. So here he is at 23. He's, I'm obviously helping him out with cash for my daughter, but he's taking care of his girlfriend and my daughter as a 23-year-old man. Right?
Yeah, definitely. The way that my family was set up was definitely I bring in the paycheck primarily. But my wife has definitely done her part. She's amazing, and she does so much work in raising our family and so much other areas. And so it's a great partnership, but definitely that provision, that sense of, I got to bring in that paycheck. And right now it's hard to do that for so many people across the United States.
Right. I mean, you think about that number, it was 6.6 million people in filing for unemployment, which is just, it's unfathomable, honestly. And we don't really know how this is going to form out. But one of the things I think that's so important, and that I talk about with my male clients, is self-care for men really is centered around community. Like legit, it's what keeps them alive. With the high suicide rate and such, as I know, my personal story about my son, But it's that whole idea behind, if a man doesn't have community, he's in trouble. I mean, we are in trouble. But for women, you know, we have a bad haircut, or we know we need a recipe or whatever, we pick up the phone. Right. So it's just much more, it's easier for us because we're built to be more social, whether it's nurture or nature. Really, it doesn't matter. It's just that right now we need to make sure that there's bonds being built and ways for men to build community, people to build
I think
community.
even on that too, that a lot of guys, we build our connection shoulder to shoulder. You know, a lot of women, it's face to face, right? Get together, talk. My wife leans in with her sister, we're talking. I don't do that. The same thing. My dad and I do something together. We go skiing together. So our activities cut off. That means our social connections are cut off. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to get on the phone and chat with somebody. A lot of guys don't talk on the phone. Right. You know, growing up, my sister would talk on the phone for a long time. I didn't. Hours. Right? It's very different, very different.
Right.
And so a lot of guys, they're getting cut off from that. I think another thing that's happening though is a lot of guys are realizing how cut off they are, that their connections are work-based connections, they're gym-based connections. And now all of a sudden they're home and maybe they'll see their wife or their girlfriend or their daughters or their female family members reach out to people and be connected, and realizing I don't actually have anybody to reach out and connect to. Yeah. So that activity, that production, that relationship that's based on activity and production, all those have shifted during this time.
Yeah, that's a really big deal. And I would love it if we could actually, maybe what we can do is we can set up another call to talk about strategies that we can provide people. I know that one of the interviewers that I interviewed, he talked about calling it like a tool shed, where they all get together and they show their projects, like they're sending each other pictures of their project. And you're exactly right. Men are built to parallel play, and there's nothing wrong with that. Amen. Right. I'm so thankful that men are men and women are women, but how can we help support, you know, women support men and men support women to build deeper intimacy during this time where we need it so desperately, Mike?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a crazy season. And I think that we're all needing to give each other grace and not give into guilt. There's a sense of like, I should be doing this or shouldn't be doing this. And there's a lot of that because we're redefining reality, and there's a new life, and we've never done this before. And all of those cliches that we're hearing again and again. And so some days we're up here and some days we're down here. I mean, I know that I'm generally a up person, but there's days where I've gone down. There's days where I get lethargic and complacent and not wanting to do anything. Mm-hmm. And then there's days I'm doing so much. And so I think in this whole process, giving ourselves grace and giving others grace and not giving into guilt when we're down here, because that doesn't help. Guilt never helps. Guilt just brings you down even more. And so just going, okay, that was yesterday. I did that yesterday, but what am I doing now? What am I doing today?
So grace through all of it.
Grace and not guilt. Grace for others and grace for ourselves, and grace for especially anybody that you come across that is still working. Grace.
Yeah. Right. I love that. It's one of my favorite words. And it's so hard to give it to ourselves.
Right.
You know, I mean, is that like, how do you view it? How do you view your evolving sense of grace, Mike?
I think normally I like to push myself a bit, right? So I think the normal is, you know, kind of like kick myself in the butt a little bit, like, Mike, you didn't go to the gym today or something like that, right? And this has been a little bit of more, hey, get it. There's real emotions going on. So giving myself grace to have those different emotions. I think that there's been some different views in culture, and so some people are just like, no, you got to stay upbeat. But the reality is there's, if someone dies in your family, you don't stay upbeat. You need to go down here. You need to feel it. When my mom died, if I was just like, hey, things are great. And so that's unrealistic. So some people are here, and then other people are just down here, like life's crashing. It's bad. Feel the sorrow. This is bad. And I believe that there's a little bit of both. Normally, you really shouldn't be feeling these unless you have reason to. Well, we have reason to. So evolving grace is giving yourself grace to feel the roller coasters. It feels like I'm a teenager again, where that roller coaster of emotions going on. I think during this COVID crisis, there's days where, hey, you got to make yourself up here and give yourself a reason to be up here and be proud of whatever it is that you can be proud of. The days where you just realize, hey, this is a huge economic crash. This is going to be life altering. There's people I know who have died because of this. So allowing yourself to feel those emotions, even while other days you're up here. So giving yourself grace to go up and down. We usually don't say that you should have these big mood swings, but right now I think give grace to have mood swings.
Yeah, exactly. That is beautiful. And I love it that you're talking about the emotional component of it, because it's like, that is now we're finally in the place where, in our culture, particularly for men, where we can say, hey, what's your, where are you emotionally? Right. Cause we're not ensconced in the doing. And that, what a beautiful thing that, that we can model, women can model that, and men can model what that looks like. And an article that I wrote about the transformative power of grief, it went in how men deal with grief. It's very different how they experience it. And we need to honor that process. So I think that, let's both come to the table honoring and respecting each other and giving grace to both to ourselves and to the people we're ensconced in our homes, all locked in, and let's defy the odds of increased divorce rate. And, that's what's happening in Hunan, right? So we can do it different. And I'm really committed. And that's another reason, Mike, really honestly, why I'm doing this. Because let's have these honest conversations, these transparent conversations about how to play it real, play it honest, and not be afraid to show you're ugly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sweet. So if it's okay by you, I would love to for a little bit, because I know a lot of these topics that you're going to discuss in your new book are going to have a beautiful bridge to what we're talking about. So you have a new book coming out that you're in the midst of creating, and congratulations. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? And then I know we wanted to talk a little bit about the 7 shifts that you speak of.
Yeah. So when the COVID crisis started coming around, and realizing that just life was going to be shifted, be changed, before it was totally halted, it was still getting changed. And, I'm up in the Kirkland area normally, so I saw that things were going to be shifting, and really thinking, what do I do? How do I redeem some of this time? And so one of those high moments where things were good, it was like, hey, let me spend some time every single day writing a book. And so over the last 27 days, I worked together with Steve Gutzler, and we co-wrote a book. And so now we're in the editing phase, but the book's done, be about a 200-page book. And the whole idea is lead with no fear. And Steve and I both have done a lot of speaking, a lot of coaching. And so we're working together on this. And I love the image that we're going with. I love what we're doing with it. And we're talking about 7 shifts to get away from a fear-based leadership and getting into this leading with courage and conviction, clarity, vision, and inspiration. So kind of going from here to here, especially right now, a lot of people are caught in a fear-based leadership. What do? I'm stuck. What is my organization? What's my small business? What's my company? How many layoffs are we going to have to do? Or just leading ourselves. And so a very appropriate time. I think we would have written the book anyway, but very appropriate time to be talking about the book and about putting it out there. So we're talking about 7 shifts, and I'll just walk through a couple. And then we're releasing the book in June. So that's exciting.
Yeah, psyched.
And so, it's super exciting. So one of the things that we're talking about is moving from smart to smart and healthy. And this is a really great time to be talking about that, because I think a lot of times leaders are so focused on smart and fast. So smart, what's the right thing to do? I'm reading, I'm learning, I'm a go-getter, I'm a driver, all those different aspects, all those different attributes. And I'm going fast. I'm trying to do the most. Well, we've been slowed down. And so we're having to reevaluate, how should we really be doing? Maybe it's not smart and fast. Maybe it's really smart and healthy. And really looking at, how am I emotionally? How am I physically? How am I spiritually or soulfully? How am I relationally in all these different areas and all the different buckets? And so how do we get from here to here? And then we're going through some other shifts, like a shift from activity to accomplishment. So just from being busy to what is it that you're leaving behind? Really, it's the difference between resume building and legacy building. So
Amen.
what am I doing just to put this on my resume? What am I doing here to build a legacy and leave something behind? And then we're going from a shift from insecure to confident, walking through that, a shift from fear and victim mentality to leader mentality. That's the first one. Shift from black and white vision to high definition vision. So we're taking these different shifts and just saying, how can we just do a little bit? And here's the huge premise that we have, is that a lot of times when we think about reading a book, we're like, okay, I have to make this dramatic change. And we're not actually saying dramatic change. We're saying shifts. So if you think about just a tiny 3-degree shift, I mean, barely imperceptible when you open up your hands and do it. But if you keep on going in that trajectory, you end up in a continent apart. And so that's the whole guiding idea. Hey, it's not that you have to make a major change. What if you just make a small little shift, start going a slightly different direction, add in a new practice, add in a new habit, change the way you think, change the way you talk, make these small little changes, write down your vision instead of just having it here, write it down. And then that takes you in a whole different direction. So that's our premise. We're super excited about it. And we have the draft done and sent it to the rough editor yesterday.
We love it. That's awesome. So you said so much. I love that image of just like this little pizza pie moolamai.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be wide open. Like
Yeah.
let's just start thinking about what are the small shifts that we can take. I mean, that goes back to micro habits. Like if I can just pray for 5 minutes a day and stretch for 5 minutes a day, at the end of the day, when I put my head on the pillow, I'm like, right on, right?
Yeah.
One of my other interviewers, we were like, all right, I make a goal to reach out to 5 people today. You know, we think about particularly during this crisis, we think about the elderly, but they aren't the only marginalized, right? Elderly, absolutely. But we also have our single people, men that you know that are single, any other marginalized people that you know. Again, this is just two, you know, this is a time to take that 5 rule and whatever number you choose, but it's a really good time to reach out for sure. And I think that's going to be lead us in a small shift to really our legacy. And I would love it if you would talk to me a little bit about what you, how you view legacy building. What is that for you, Mike?
Yeah, I think one of the things that success often is viewed as what's on my resume. You know, look at my LinkedIn profile, see what's on there. Look at my resume that I've written out. Look at what I've accomplished in terms of, you know, just been busy in my life and what boards I've been part of. But then when you really fast forward, I mean, how much of that is going to be important at the end of your life? And so really that success and true leadership is being respected and loved by the people closest to you. And that's really legacy. And so I want my son to be proud of me. I want my son to go, well done. And there's been moments in my dad's life where my dad's a practicing attorney. He has his own firm and has accomplished a lot and has been very active in his life as well. And yet, even with that, there's been times where my dad has looked at me and said, you know, what am I leaving behind? And, you know, what do I have? I don't have everything I want. I don't have the size of a boat I want. I don't have the size of a plane that I want. I don't have the size of, and so he's compared it sometimes just by his possessions. And when he's at the yacht club, he's talking to other people and they just have more titles behind them and such. And so here's this guy who's very successful. He has all this stuff. Yeah, he's caught up in that kind of resume build, you know, my resume versus someone else's resume. And so I've told my dad a couple times, like, Dad, the biggest thing you have is your kids, your grandkids, and those areas, and you know that we respect you and we love you and we want to be part of your life. And he knows that, so it's a good example to bring up. But I think a lot of people, it is just more, what can I put on my plate? And right now, it's a good time to slow things down and be thinking about what am I leaving behind? So I'm even talking to some people about writing some legacy books during this time. Use this time to write down your story, what lessons that you want to leave behind for people. Use this time to be thinking through, hey, is a career change after this a good thing to do? And what kind of career do I want to be in? Even if you take a pay cut, what does that look like for you? What are you doing
now's the
behind
time. I mean, you and I talked about this, but this is a level playing field. I mean, honestly, we're at ground zero. So all the people that may be experts in their field here and there, you know, really now we're all coming down to a level, and who will rise and who are you choosing to rise with? And who are you going to lift up with you? And I think many, I think probably you'll maybe agree with me, but just losing your mom, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't know that. I'm really sorry. And me losing my son is that we already portaled out to another level. And I think grief, or getting in touch with that experience of grief, kind of either you heal or you don't. And what do you learn through the challenges in your life? And I know I view myself as a spiritual warrior, and I am here to be a helper with a capital H. And that's
Yeah.
really what this Survive to Thrive interviewing process is all about.
Yeah.
How am I bringing in people into the fold? Because we are the helpers, Mike. Like legit,
Yeah.
when things go down, though, people are going to line up behind us because we're strong and we're emotional and we're well intentioned, and we are committed to our legacy. God, love,
Right.
connection, commitment.
Right. Right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
for your dad, Mike. That's the part I love. When
Yeah.
you just said that, you're like, Dad, like, dude, like, so look at how the roles are reversed in that
Yeah.
way. What a blessing you are to your father.
Well, yeah. When you think about this, right, I think so much life is busy, and right now, if we would slow down, so you see these people who are busy, and they're having to homeschool their kids, and even though that's not something you want to do long term, and you want to get them back into a teacher who knows what they're doing, and it's funny watching some of those videos out there where people are doing that. But you'll look back at this, and even though it's driving you crazy right now, you'll look back at that as one of your fondest moments. Yeah, you've been able to go out and wrestle with your kids, and my son and I were wrestling yesterday a whole bunch, and we've been able to wrestle more just because we're around each other.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget that. I remember my mom saying to me, and I'm going to say this too because you have a young child. My mom was like, Katie, your 40s are the years you remember. Those are the years that you savor and remember. And I never forgot that. Like I lived with my babies as babies. And because my mom's voice was always there. These are the years you remember. Why? Because they're textural. You just described it, rolling around on the floor with your baby. The smell and the feel and the laughter and, playing out that boundary of love. It's just beautiful.
We were playing Legos the other day. My son's 4.5 and he's almost 5. So we're playing Legos too. And it's funny because he's doing all the moving up the pieces and I'm doing one of the voices. And, the reality is like, normally I probably wouldn't have had that time and I wouldn't have been home right then. I would have missed out on that and it would have been fine, right? He would have gone on and moved on. But I'm looking back, that was a really fun moment. And, I just put my phone aside, not to look at anything, not to read some more news. And I was just present. And so, which is hard, because you're being present all the time, but, trying to be present, trying to do that. And then, there's been some different times where arguments have come up in the family because you're just around and you're discussing things, right?
Intense.
And trying to, and that goes back to the grace part. It's just going, what, everybody right now gets grace. I like to call it, everyone gets grace to grow. Everyone gives grace to grow. And if you don't give someone grace, if you don't give a new plant grace, it's not going to grow. If you're like, hey, why aren't you already 10 feet tall? It's not going to happen. But if you give grace for them to grow and you give that water and that nurture and that space and that time, and over the course of time, they grow and you grow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens out at the end of this. I'm hoping that I'll look back and there's going to be some things I'll just have to forgive. Like, hey, I had a bad attitude that day. I was mopey that day. And, I ate way too many cookies that day. Right. Way too many cookies. That was yesterday. And all those, I did those. But at the same time going, you know what? I'm going to give grace that, but there are some things I'm walking out of. It wasn't a waste of time. These memories, these conversations, these family moments, these whatever it might be, this book. So weighing it on the side of producing and using this time for good and being out there, and then using it also and saying, you know what, also I'm going to give grace. One more big thought I've been thinking about during this all time is trying to create something during this time that helps people, adds value to people, and brings value to you. So one of the things I was working with one of my clients was, what can you do that no one else is doing right now because they're just trying to survive. Right. They're just trying to pay their bills, and what can you do? And so it was so fascinating. He just texted me shortly before this. He's like, I want to hire someone. So he is looking to hire someone. But here's the thing, because he's looking at hiring someone when others are getting let go, and he's looking for a salesperson, and he's diving into that, he'll hire someone that someone else had to cut. Yes. So he's going to get a high-end salesperson because that person's available to him right now. Mm-hmm. So he's not just surviving, like, how can I play my employees? How can I just get through this? He's going, what can we do? And I held a meeting with him and his company this last week, and we did a Zoom call. We talked about exactly this right here. What can you do now that others are not doing, so you position yourself to do something that others can't do when you get through this? one example was a friend of mine. He started getting a construction business in 2007. So the whole economy crashed, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was getting into building houses, and then everybody got out of building houses. So he survived, and not only that, he thrived by really just doing anything and everything that no one else wanted to do during that time, like just the crap jobs. Well, because he worked hard and he grew and he sharpened his edge and he established himself as a hard worker, when the economy started turning around, guess who was on top of the list of contractors?
Right. Yeah.
So he positioned himself because of that. So my client that I just told you about, he's out in California and everything's closed down. He can't go anywhere. So he's working the phones like crazy, and he's trying to get in front of his clients so that when things turn around, he can come in, and maybe some of the other businesses, will lose because they haven't been around. And they're like, well, Steve's still been here.
Exactly. So he's rising up. He is the helper with the capital H. So isn't that awesome? It's funny that you brought up 2008, because that was the year that I built a gold company. It turned out to be a multi-million-dollar company. And I did that out of my house, legit, buying and selling gold on one hand, making grilled cheese and flipping them over on the other. Like, cause I had 2 young babies, but I reinvented, and it was all about relationship building at a time when people were freaking the frig out.
Yep.
So it's like, how are you serving? Like, yeah, we're afraid. Like everyone is afraid, but really, ultimately we have a choice every single day. 2 feet on the ground. Who am I serving today? I'm centered in who I am. I'm centered in God. And I know I'm here for bigger things. And we put the fear, because really, ultimately, it's faith or fear. That's one area where there's really not that much gray area.
Right.
So choose faith.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, I think one thing that people could do is build mass, like someone who knows how to sew, or you want to teach yourself how to sew. So make some masks and sell them. Yeah. And here's the thing, it's like a lot of people are just trying to give it away. Well, why not? Why not sell it? Don't price gouge, right? People who are buying hand sanitizer and selling it for $10 for a little thing, that's price gouging. That's not acceptable. But people who are going out in bulk and then putting it in places and selling it for like a couple cents more, and they're making some money, what can you do that's adds value to others? Absolutely. And helps them, and also helps you, because you need to pay for yourself. And then when you get paid, then you have money to pay for somebody else. And so what can you do that adds value to others and provides income for you? And what's new, what's different, and try some different things.
Right. And money is just energy, right? So that's the thing, is that you have to understand, it's just energetics. So people will feel better about it if they're able to pay you for your value. So many of us give things away. So, just honor the fact that whatever you have is worthy. Mike, for example, you and I with our books, both of our books are applicable to this time. I mean, I have Claim Your Inner Badass. You have your book. I'm going to say it right. Speak with No Fear. Right. So both of us have books on Amazon. Please nab those. I discounted my ebook, so it's available. But both, reading, reaching out for resources. It's a wonderful way to learn right now, is to just gather up and be ready. We're filling up our baskets with goodness. And the more we fill our basket, the less there's room for rotten tomatoes.
Yeah, it's a good time to invest in yourself, especially on those days where you're up here. And here's the amazing thing is, motion creates emotion. So if you find yourself here and you can summon up that energy and that strength, and you force yourself to do something, after you be there for a moment, accept the scariness, do all the things that you need to do emotionally, cry, journal, whatever it is, but then do something that will change. And emotion creates emotion. So you go out for that jog, that walk, and write down something, create a product, and it'll bring you here. Then eventually that will come back down, because it's weird times. Right. But then when you're here again, do it again. Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing too, is I'm saying that to everybody who's on these calls, is like, pick up the phone. If you're struggling, say, man, I am not doing good today. Tell me a joke or something. It's okay to admit that you're struggling. And I love when the behind you, Mike, is strength. That's awesome. That's totally good. So where are you getting your strength from, and on those down days? And don't be afraid to reach out for help, whether it's your community, your family, your friends, or mental health services are available for us to be able to support us. Our ministers wherever you need to get the support, please reach out and get the support and the love that you need, because everyone is in a similar space. And some of us have maybe developed tools, but we are all here. It's a great time to develop your emotional resiliency as well.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
So we are squeezed for time, but this was amazing, Mike. I really appreciate you very much for showing up. And if you need anything from me, certainly I'm available for you. And I'm looking forward to your new book being released. And I'll be happy to add that to the link so that people can get a copy of that as we move this Survive to Thrive podcast along. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Kate. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
Appreciate your time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to Survive to Thrive. And I look forward to interviewing another person to share some really valuable information with you. Take care.